Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? All right. If you can't hear me, put your thumbs up. That was a joke. Right. I appreciate you all being here. Welcome to the memorial service for our dear friend and colleague, Jonathan Boyle. And I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Jonathan's brother, and Brad Boyle, and Brad's wife, Susan Swihart, who are here with us this afternoon. We are obviously recording the gathering for Jonathan's family, and we send out our deepest condolences to Jonathan's mother. No mother should be faced with losing a child. It's the worst kind of grief imaginable. So to Jonathan's mom, we extend our deepest sympathies to you, and we just hope and pray that you get through every day as you can, because it takes a long time to be able to recover from a loss like this. We're with you, and we're saying prayers, and you're in our hearts for you. So we come together to honor the life and legacy of Jonathan, whose presence touched each of us in unique and profound ways. And we gather to share this grief in his passing. We do that best by celebrating his life and who he was and what he meant to us. We reflect on the cherished moments and the conversations we had with Jonathan, and we find solace in sharing our love and our laughter and our memories, which are a testament to his impact on our campus and in the lives of our students. So may this activity serve as a source of comfort and inspiration for us all in the days ahead. So at this moment, I'd like to ask Lauren Walker to come to the podium and present a poem for Jonathan.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The poem I selected is titled "In Our Hearts." We thought of you today, but that is nothing new. We thought about you yesterday and days before that too. We think of you in silence. We often speak your name. Now all we have are memories and your picture in a frame. Your memory is our keepsake, which will never part. God has you in his keeping. We have you in our heart.
Thank you, Lauren. That was incredible. I appreciate that. And I think that expresses exactly how we're feeling. So let's take a moment for private reflection. I ask everyone to bring memories of Jonathan, reflections of him into your mind. And while you do that, rather than a moment of silence, I'm going to ring this bell. That's a tradition we have here. This is the singing bell. And I'm going to ring it once for every one of the 5 years that Jonathan was here with us. So bring him to mind, reflect on Jonathan while the bell sings. And hopefully I don't knock it off this cradle right now. say every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. Maybe 5 of them just got their wings. As I was conjuring up memories of Jonathan, what came to mind most was the several conversations we had over Teams as he was trying to fight his cancer. And I was just taken by his absolute positivity and his desire to beat what he was fighting, and his absolute and sheer trust that he was going to beat it. And mostly because of what he wanted to do in terms of his teaching and for his students. And I thought, what do I have the internal fortitude to, as I'm going through chemo, teach and put the kind of energy into what he was doing that I'm not sure I could. So his strength and that absolute tenacity and passion for his teaching is what I walk away with for me as a true inspiration. And so I just thought I would share that with you. Now it's my pleasure to bring Marlene Titus, who knew Jonathan well and was responsible for bringing him to the campus, up to the podium. Marlene.
Thank you all for being here today to honor Jonathan's life. He was hired in the fall of 2019 as an assistant professor in our department. He jumped into the job, taking on committee assignments, getting involved with Alpha Beta Gamma Honor Society, Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society. He even donated homemade lava lamps to the Foundation for Starry Night. He told me that one of his mentors had advised him to get involved with all the departments he could across the college to make an impact as a faculty member. And as most of you know, he took that advice to heart. Jonathan embraced his job here and made faculty, staff, and students part of his family. He was nominated twice for Outstanding Faculty Member by his students. He was always available for office hour conversations with his students, weekdays and weekends. He embraced all aspects of teaching, especially the detailed manner in which he set up his Canvas sites for the online courses he taught. He was very proud of his Quality Matters affiliation. Students remarked that he covered any questions they may have ahead of time. When Jonathan was teaching these online courses, he provided many ways to interact with his distant students. One of the ways was to use the software Padlet, where at the beginning of the semester, he and his students introduced themselves, answering 5 questions that he, as the professor, posed to them all. Jonathan's love of teaching and of Carroll Community College was evident in his response to the question, "Plans after you graduate from Carroll?" His answer was, "Graduate? I'm happy to be at Carroll. Awesome students, awesome colleagues. I plan to retire here." Lastly, I'd like to mention Jonathan's amazing work ethic. He taught me that when you love what you do, it keeps you alive. He taught online courses during his cancer treatment, and as a colleague mentioned to him, he did more sick than most of us do when we are well. We will truly miss him, as in the last 5 years, he touched many lives. Thank you.
Would Professor Susan Size come to the podium, please?
Hello, and I'd like to welcome you to campus. And so we've all thought, what do we say about Jonathan? a scholar, professor, that quality matters guru, and just a wonderful person. He and I actually had a few things in common. We loved our jobs at Carroll, and everyone has praised his love and his work ethic. He was so excited about his promotion project, and I was lucky enough to review it. And in true Boyle fashion, Jonathan sought to share his influence across campus on quality matters to improve student learning, to improve teaching. Both of us lived in Ohio, he much longer than I did, and we attended graduate schools that I had no idea were such arch rivals. Jonathan was an immensely proud graduate of the University of Toledo, home of the Rockets, colors, midnight blue and gold, and I am a graduate of Bowling Green State University, home of the Falcons, ugly colors, brown and orange. And both schools are located off Interstate 75. You know, I really didn't follow sports in graduate school, so I had no idea how fierce this rivalry was until I met Jonathan. So he always let me know about the football game between Toledo and Bowling Green that was known as the Battle of I-75. It would be either in our little chats in the K building, or he would actually email me and tell me about this rivalry, how I could listen to it or how I could watch it. And on Mondays, we beat you again, so. I also learned that in 1962, the University of Toledo actually purchased a rocket from the US Army. The university painted it, the color, you know, the school colors of midnight blue and gold. But I don't like this. It's aimed at Bowling Green State University. This is true. Just 25 miles down the road from University of Toledo. Now, keep in mind, it's merely a lawn decoration. But I'm old, and it brought flashbacks of the Cuban Missile Crisis. So finding out this information about the extent of the rivalry, I was really shocked that he would even talk to me, because I am a mere Falcon. But I also started to wonder if he had a miniature blue and gold rocket in his office that was aimed at my office in the academic center. Did he? And we're a University of Michigan family, and I thought the rivalry between Michigan and Ohio State was bad. So we had some great conversations, as I said, in the K building, and then over Messenger and our phones when he became ill. He loved to talk. And his focus, though, was always on others. This leads me to our final thing that we have in common. We became members of a club that nobody wanted to become a member of, and that's the Cancer Club. My friend Jonathan, I had such admiration for him because he was very comfortable sharing that his diagnosis, where I was extremely private until today. As people have said, he just continued to teach and work on special projects along with his promotion in the midst of a horrible illness. He checked on me to see how I was doing, and we had plans when he got better. And I always said, we're going to go to that battle of I-75, and I want to see that rocket. So anyway, he made me a better person. He inspired me as he braved his battle with cancer. I'm always going to remember him as a kind warrior, a valiant warrior with a great heart. And so the only way to end my little whatever it is today is to say, go Rockets!
Great stories. Thank you, Susan. Now, I would like to ask Andrea Gravel, Director of Digital Learning and Media Services, to come up to the podium, please. Andrea?
Thank you and welcome. So everybody knows that QM and Jonathan were pretty much synonymous. On August 15th of 2019, Jonathan's first day, he showed up at my office door. And at the time I was sharing the office with Susie. 45 minutes, a lot of talk about QM, and numerous stories about Toledo. He left. And we were like, wow, this guy is really into QM, awesome. And then he came back and we did the same thing for about another hour. But that just shows how dedicated this man was to his craft. And then about 6 or so months later, he came to us and said he wanted to get BUAD 101-75 QM certified. And he worked hard with Susie, very, very hard. Now, one thing about getting a course QM certified is there's no guarantee you're going to pass, although we'll do everything we can to help you get there. Passing is a score of 89. Most people here do pass with an 89, 90, 91, but then they have to make some changes. Not Jonathan. Jonathan went and passed with an almost unheard of 98 and no changes required. That led Susie and I to go, hey, he needed something. He needed a prize. So we went to Five Below, and we found a, 3.5, maybe 4 foot long unicorn balloon, which we proceeded to blow up and tie to his door. Marlene, do you know how long it stayed there? Quite a long time. Because he did such a great job. And from then, now we just give everyone who gets QM certified some kind of balloon. So if you see balloons of congratulations from digital learning on someone's door or in their office, think of it as the Jonathan Boyle Memorial Congratulation Award. Thank you.
Quality Matters is quite an honor to earn that recognition, and it's if you've never looked at that activity before, you're unfamiliar with it. Just know it's a deep certification process that's about the quality of your course meets the standards that have been set by peers, actually from Maryland, and who were pioneers in the quality process for online learning. So for him to have gotten that certification is special, for sure. Okay, it's now my privilege to ask Jonathan's brother, Brad, to come and share his remarks with us. Brad, come on up.
Hello, everyone. As you can tell, I'm Jonathan's brother. Jonathan and I have some things in common, obviously, but one of them that we don't have in common is I don't necessarily like to talk as much as my brother did. So this will be rather brief. It means a lot to Susan and I as we sit here and listen to these stories, because I feel like we could have told many of these stories with slightly different language. And it's so incredibly obvious that so many of you understood and knew Jonathan so well, which is just incredibly touching to us. I was telling Marlene, this is actually my second time on campus, because the first time was, I believe it was May of 2019. I was sitting in the parking lot in my car checking work emails while Jonathan was in here interviewing, because he was staying with us in Northern Virginia, and so I drove him up for the interview. And he had interviewed a few different places, was largely things, he really didn't necessarily feel like he connected with a lot of the places that he had interviewed at. But when he came back to the car, it was a much more optimistic language that he used. And I even remember thinking, I'm not going to say this to Jonathan, but I think he just nailed it. And sure enough, he got the job. And then we began the process of moving from Toledo, go Rockets, to Maryland. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. Sorry, I almost made it too. Thank you so much for what you provided for my brother, the support you gave him, believing in him, the love you gave him. It's incredibly important to my family. I just want to say thank you on behalf of my mother, Debbie, my brother, Todd, my sister, Megan, and her husband, Dave, my wife, Susan. It's just everything that you did for my brother over these past 5 years. I mean, I mean this. This is the honest truth. These were the happiest 5 years of his life, and that was because of all of you. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. Now for something added to the celebration for a special recognition. Dr. Mintz, if you'll come up and provide this special recognition for Jonathan. Thank you.
So you've heard from a number of folks the wonderful work ethic that Jonathan had, and you may know that he was in the midst of applying for promotion to associate professor. He had submitted a plan that was approved by the academic chairs last year, and he was on target to complete his promotion this spring, with anticipated approval by the Board of Trustees in June. So I wanted to highlight just a couple of the things that Jonathan was including in his promotion portfolio. And you've heard about some of these, so I won't talk anymore about quality matters, but that was certainly a big piece of it. In addition, he talked about assignment design and working with his colleagues to help them learn from his strengths. He had ongoing plans for improving his courses, incorporating student feedback. He was dedicated most definitely to professional development and attending conferences and also presenting and sharing his knowledge with others. And he certainly was committed to Carroll through committee service, most notably as serving as our president of our academic council. So to recognize Jonathan for all that he accomplished at Carroll, we are posthumously promoting him to the rank of associate professor and sharing his certificate with his family. And also, as part of promotion, we do some fun things. We let people buy Lynx gear. And so to have a happy moment here, we have put together some Lynx items for his two young nieces so that you have something fun to take to them in remembrance of Jonathan. And before I close, I want to give special thanks to Rob Brown for advocating for Jonathan and really taking care of all of us in this memorial process. So I'm going to give you his certificate. Certificate of Recognition awarded to Jonathan Boyle, presented in honor of the achievement of those qualifications accorded to the academic rank of Associate Professor, February 12, 2024. Here are some, I'll do one. Here are some of the fun things. And now I'd like to invite Associate Professor Martine Foreman to come forward.
Good afternoon. So Jonathan and I both started together in the fall of 2019, along with several other colleagues. I suspect at the time we entered the academic year excited about the new experiences and opportunities that we would have here at Carroll. From new faculty orientation to our teaching square, which turned into a teaching triangle with Mary, to serving together on the adjunct faculty mentoring committee, we had our share of experiences. But what I valued most was the unstructured and unexpected interactions that we shared. Bumping into Jonathan outside of the K building as he was headed to class, or seeing him in the hallway of the P building in the morning as I walked to my office. Those are the moments I will miss the most. It was what most people would call small talks, but those moments mattered to me. Jonathan always seemed genuinely interested in how I was doing or how my semester was coming along, and he would share how things were going on his end. The way he would stop to talk to me for those few moments made me feel like he cared. In a fast-paced world where we often wave at colleagues, say that we're fine, and keep it moving, it was nice to talk to someone who wanted to connect beyond the simple pleasantries. A few months ago, Jonathan called me unexpectedly. Now, between classes and meetings, it's pretty easy for me to miss a phone call. But I was in my office that day. Surprised to see his name pop up on Teams, I picked up. I thought he was calling about the adjunct mentoring committee, or maybe he needed my help with something because he wasn't back on campus yet. But that wasn't it at all. His words surprised me. He was calling to share that he recently purchased copies of my books for his nieces, and he wanted to tell me how much he loved the books. His unexpected kindness touched my heart that day. His words lifted me up in a way that I didn't know I needed. Sometimes we wonder if other people see value in some of the things that matter to us most. His call made me feel seen and valued. We chatted for a few minutes. I thanked him for his kind words, and we briefly talked about how he was doing and how he was feeling. We ended that conversation with a promise that I would sign those books for his nieces the next time that I saw him. It was clear that he loved them deeply, and I knew instantly how lucky they were to have him. In the short time that I knew Jonathan, I grew to appreciate his kind spirit, his love of family, and his dedication to Carroll. I'm honored to stand here and share how much I know he will be missed by our campus community. I'm also grateful that although those signed copies of my books getting to his nieces are not happening in the way that we intended, I'm able to honor the promise that I made to Jonathan during that last conversation. May Jonathan rest well, and may we all walk through our days remembering how important it is to stop and show genuine interest and concern about how others are doing. Also, maybe each of us can try to pick up the phone from time to time and tell someone that the contributions they make in the world matter. Jonathan, I hope you know how much your contributions mattered to us and how much value you added to the many lives that you touched. Thank you.
I think the applause is fine. I've wanted to applaud after everybody. Would anyone else like to come to the microphone and say anything? It's in your heart, in your mind, Tom? And when Tom finishes, if you'd like to come up, just come on up.
Well, thank you, and my pleasure to meet you. So Jonathan and I have one thing in common. We both got kicked out of the college when we first got here. We came at about the same time, and he was at this end of the college, and I was at that end of the college. And neither one of us knew that when the building closes, it closes. You are out. So we kind of met together in the parking lot. Never met him before. And he started talking, and I started talking, and he introduced himself as a new faculty member that was teaching business and entrepreneurship. And I said, oh, what a coincidence. I run the Miller Center, and I teach clients, not students, if they're interested in starting a business or have a business and need support. And I said, no, by the way, if you read your emails, there's a strategic initiative that your side and my side should be collaborating. And he said, that's awesome. And so we exchanged, and we talked for about an hour. I'm sure you get that. And so I had to get home. So he said, I want you to come to my classrooms. I'm going to invite you in and talk about Miller, because what I want to do is have my students not just understand academics, but the practical nature of what we're trying to teach. So I did. So I would go in and he would give me 15 minutes, but that would last for an hour. And on the Miller side, we also had events that we would bring businesses in. And I said, hey, Jonathan, how about maybe your students come to some of the Miller events and get to meet businesses and network and hear the presentations? And so he rung me up and he said, I think I'm going to do it for extra credit. I said, okay, fine, just let me know, we'll register them. Then a couple days later, he called me and said, no, I'm not going to do it for extra credit. I'm just going to bring them. And I think, Dr. Boyle, you were at one of the events where he brought the whole class. And it was just a great benefit. And they got to see what was actually happening. Two things I remember about Jonathan. Number one, if you named a company, any company, he could tell you who founded it, when it got started, the trials and tribulations, and the current events of that company. No question about it. The second thing is, something I've taken with me, is whenever Jonathan and I would talk about what we could do together, he always would say, Tom, what's the benefit for my students? And so many times we do so many things and we don't think about what's the benefit. So I use that today with my kids, my grandkids, my spouse, as they come, I say, well, what's the benefit? What's the benefit? So I want you to remember that, because I do remember that. And I'll miss him. We always wish we had more time. And also, Jonathan was the kind of guy, when you meet him, like you've always knew him. You know, it's something about him that you just took to him right away. So not only was I part of the college with him, he was my friend as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Brianna. I should have grabbed a tissue before I came up here, sorry. I do have a few memories of Jonathan that I did want to share that not everyone knows. So in the fall of 2019, I was working with a couple of other people to try and revive the faculty committee. Does anyone remember the faculty committee meetings? That fall we had pizza and some professional development and things like that. Well, Jonathan was a faithful attendee of the faculty committee. And these were on Friday afternoons. And I remember that during one of those meetings, he received a text and announced to everyone that he was going to be an uncle. I can't remember, I don't know if it's the first time or whatever, but he was so excited, he just could not contain his excitement. I tried to go in chronological order. If you've met with Jonathan on Teams, then you know what his background was, right? And I would always just picture him sitting right up there on that balcony, knowing like he's really not there, but that's what it looks like. And then the January 2023 AFACT conference, he did a session twice called Career Success and Survival, How to Get Better Results in Your Workplace. And it was based on a book by Clinton Longnecker entitled The Successful Career Survival Guide. And I actually went back to his PowerPoint slides. I saved them because I loved his session. I think it was only an hour long, but I didn't want it to end. I wanted to stay the rest of the day. When I think back on that day, for some reason, I remember it being in person. It wasn't in person, it was on Zoom. He did such a good job of keeping us engaged and relaying the messages. And then I pulled up the last email that I received from him. And, well, not the last email, but one email related to that day. I had joined Zoom at 12:30, thinking, or like a little bit before 12:30, thinking that the session started at 12:30, but I was like 35 minutes early. So I was like, darn it, it starts at 1, so I hopped off of Zoom. And I just sent him a quick email and I said, I'm so sorry I was at your session so early. I had the time wrong. And his response was, no worries, we're among friends. So ever since that conference, I've been meaning to purchase that book. So just today, I went on Amazon and in memory of Jonathan, I purchased the book. So I'll read it. I'm not a huge reader. I like to listen, but I want to actually read it and underline things. And Dr. Mintz mentioned that he was the president of Academic Council, and I was really looking forward to him carrying the mace. I didn't know what it was called. I had to look that up too. But the mace that Dr. Ball designed. And so I can just picture him right now holding the mace in his associate professor position. So thank you.
Hi. I don't know if I'm the only student of Professor Boyle's in here. I don't know, I only had one class with him, but he was just such a good guy. He was so amazing. Excuse me, I'm a big crier. I've got a lot of emotions, and it's like it's so upsetting because I read the email, and at first I didn't I hadn't read the name of who had passed, but I felt like so many people have been passing recently, and it's been very upsetting. And when I saw his name, my mouth dropped to the floor because I had no clue that he had cancer, because I had just been a student with him for one semester, and I just only recently started working here, so I hadn't even gotten to see him recently, and I had just been thinking about him, so he is going to be very much missed in my life. He was a very, very kind person, and he, just like everyone else has said, he always came to talk to me, and those small talks weren't small talks. But I think somewhere in him, he knew that maybe I wasn't the most confident person in myself and wasn't the most assured of myself, because he would always remind me of how good of a student I was, and how much he valued me in the classroom, and and how much we made eye contact, because you know how students can be these days with their laptops out, and I was taking notes on paper and pen, and sometimes I had to find other things to look at. Yeah, he was very loved, and I wish I had spoken to him more before he had passed. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Swihart. I'm Jonathan's sister-in-law. I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Brad said, how important this community was to him. He loved his job here. As Brad said, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say these were probably the 5 happiest years of his life, truly. And I know that his relationships with you all and with his students was what helped keep him going through the treatment. He was living with Brad and me for the time, and so I'd see him every day, and always have conversations like you guys are saying. There's never just a short conversation, even when you're just passing through the kitchen. But he was telling me about all of the classes that he was doing, like the different projects. He always had some sort of professional development thing in the works, and he was telling me about his promotion. He was so excited about his promotion. And it really kept him forward thinking, and I truly believe it was such a blessing for him to have this community here, so thank you.
So I don't have my name is Rob Brown, and I corresponded with you guys in the past couple of weeks, and Marlene and I had the honor of being his supervisors and stuff. So there's not a lot I can say that will be anything more than what's already been shared in terms of Jonathan's dedication to what he had, his ability to try to connect with folks, and particularly to his students. And for any of his students that are seeing this or hearing this right now, know that he cared deeply about you. And he was always looking for some way to make his classes better, to get that connection, what else he could do. And certainly would talk with colleagues in the M250 suite where his office was, or reach across and talk to continuing education and think about what's something else that he could do or to add. So know that he loved you and valued you in every way possible for what things that he could do. You've already heard a lot of the Jonathanisms and stuff in terms of his ability to want to chat for a few minutes or a little longer there. So we heard about that. I also remember different times where he would be, him and I would have a conversation, but somewhere in there he would work in, but here's the thing. And there was always a thing for him to share that he had in there for that, which I got to the point where I was looking forward to that in the conversation. I was like, when's it going to drop? Let's have it. Let's have it, Jonathan. So, and he carried that through into teams conversations and stuff. So, wanted to and tried in a lot of different ways to continue communication while he was away, bravely fighting cancer. And so another, I'll say a Jonathanism is that when he would reach out to give us an update, in some order, it would be he would reach out to Marlene, and he'd reach out to Donna, and then to me, and then sometimes he also reached out to the same vein, like all the same day, Christine, a couple of times to Dr. Ball or Dr. Mintz, but he made sure that everybody around here was in the loop. But he was so optimistic in terms of sharing his fight and what he was going to do. And so one of the most optimistic folks I've ever met in my life. And thank you very much for sharing him with us. And so thank you.
Well, I know that many of you have a lot more that you might like to share, but it's difficult. And I hope that what we were able to do today was to draw a little bit of this grief out, to find a place for it among ourselves and remind ourselves about just what's important in life. We learned a lot from Jonathan. He modeled a lot for us. And all we have to do is take time to reflect on that. Take time to reflect on how we can be better people for other people. And that's what makes a place like Carroll a family. And that's why it's such a great place to be for us all, I think. So thank you all for being here. Thanks for helping. I got to tell you, I feel a good sense of getting some of this out today. I was talking about Jonathan to the Board of Trustees the other night and saying we were going to do this. And as I went to say it, I had to stop my words as well, and I just didn't expect that. But it's, it weighs on us all. And especially because Jonathan was, where he was fighting this, and it was not close by, and it wasn't easy for people to get to his funeral and that sort of thing. This is important for us. So we appreciate you being here as part of the family. Mom, you are in our hearts. And for everybody, thank you so much.